Hello, good evening to you all. Let us start a discussion on the topic objectives and scope of teaching English at school level. Okay, objectives and scope of teaching English at school level. So before we start the discussion, I'd like to quote one linguist Professor Edward Vivian Gettenby, who was a linguist and former linguistic advisor to the British Council in India. He said that there are two general aims. There are two general aims of teaching English. Number one, learning the language. Number two, doing something with the language after it is learned. Number one, learning the language. Number two, doing something with the language after it is learned. Okay, next let us come to the main objective of teaching English at the school level. Okay, the major objective of teaching English at the school level is to have mastery or command over the four basic language skills, which are listening, speaking, reading and writing. Okay, and this mastery or command over the basic language skills, listening, speaking, reading and writing, involves the knowledge of the elements of the language. That means the knowledge of English grammar. So the students should also be familiar with the rules of English grammar. Okay. Another important objective of teaching English at the school level is having a practical command of the non-literary and non-technical use of the English language. So I repeat, non-literary and non-technical English. Okay. Yes, of course, the literary aspect of the English language is important, but it is important at the higher stages of education. But at the school level, the students are expected to have command over the non-literary and the non-technical aspect of the English language. Okay. Here I would like to quote L.A. Hill, who was an ELT author and former Chief Education Officer for the British Council in India. So L.A. Hill, he said that a student cannot appreciate the distinctive qualities of the poetical style of a foreign language unless he has a thorough grounding in the everyday language. I repeat, L.A. Hill, who was an ELT, English language teaching author. He was a writer and he was also Chief Education Officer in the British Council. He said that a student cannot appreciate the distinctive qualities of the poetical style of a foreign language unless he has a thorough grounding in the everyday language. So it is important that the students have a mastery in the everyday language, in the everyday non-literary, non-technical language, and then only he or she can appreciate the literary language. Right? Next important objective of teaching English at the school level is that the students should be able to translate. The students should be able to translate the English words into the mother tongue and vice versa. Right? But here it is important to know that the students should be able to translate those words only which have suitable equivalence in the mother tongue, or simply which have suitable equivalent in the target language. So that this is also very important. So the ability to translate words from English into the mother tongue and vice versa is also one objective of teaching English at the school level. Okay. Next, another important objective of teaching English at the school level is appreciation of simple English poems. That means students should be able to appreciate simple poems in English. And this appreciation or enjoyment, we can say, this appreciation of enjoyment of English poems involves some important aspects. Number one, the student should be able to read the poems loudly. They should be able to read the poems loudly. Number two, when they read the poems loudly, their pronunciation should be correct. They should be, reading the words of the poem with correct pronunciation. Next, they should memorize the poems, and they should be able to recite the poems nicely. So these are the things that are important in the topic in the area of appreciation of English poems. So to be able to appreciate simple poems in English is also an important objective of teaching English at the school level. So here I would like to summarize, the objectives of teaching English at the school level here. So the objective of teaching English at the school level can be summarized, and here are some points. Number one, to understand English with ease when spoken at normal conversational speed. To understand English with ease when spoken at normal conversational speed. That means the student should be able to understand when somebody speaks English to them at a reasonable speed. Suppose a person is speaking English at a reasonable speed, the student should be able to understand what this person is speaking. Next important objective is to speak English correctly and fluently. To speak English correctly and fluently. That means the students should be able to speak English correctly. Here correctly means to be able to speak English with correct pronunciation, correct stress, and correct intonation. And also they should be able to speak English unhesitatingly and without stammering. Okay, next point, to read English with comprehension and at reasonable speed. Here the students should be able to read English with complete understanding, that means comprehension, and at reasonable speed. Here I'd like to mention that reading is always associated with comprehension. And here Maria Montessori said, reading without comprehension is like barking at print. So reading is associated with comprehension. Here the student should be able to read English with complete comprehension and at reasonable speed. They should not be reading English too slow and too fast. They should read English at reasonable speed. Next point, to write neatly and correctly at reasonable speed. The students should be able to write neatly. That means they should write in beautiful handwriting without any crisscrossing, right? And correctly. They should be able to write neatly and correctly. They should, whatever they write should be correct. Should be correct from the point of view of grammar, from the point of view of punctuation, etc. And also they should be able to write at a reasonable speed. When they write, they should not be too slow, they should not be very fast, they should be able to write at a reasonable speed. Next point, to enjoy simple poems in English. As I have already discussed this with you, the students should be able to enjoy simple poems in English. Okay, and this enjoyment or this appreciation involves several things. Number one, reading the poem aloud. I'm repeating the things. Reading the poem aloud, reading the poem with correct pronunciation or intonation or stress, right? Then understanding the poem completely is also another important aspect. Understanding the poem completely, memorizing the poem, and being able to recite the poem. These are the things that are important in this part, where the students are expected to enjoy simple poems in English. Okay. Next point, to acquire knowledge of the elements of English for practical command of the language. To acquire knowledge of the elements of English for practical command of the language. To acquire the knowledge of the elements of English means to acquire knowledge of the rules of English grammar. So the students should be acquainted with the rules of English grammar. This is also a very important objective of teaching English at the school level. Next, to translate common English words, phrases and sentences into their functional equivalents in the mother tongue and vice versa. I repeat, to translate common English words, phrases and sentences into their functional equivalents in the mother tongue and vice versa. Okay. Another objective of teaching English at the school level is to translate English words, phrases and sentences from English to the mother tongue and from mother tongue into English. So this is a very important aspect of teaching English at the school level. The student should be able to translate words from English into mother tongue and vice versa. Okay. Next important objective of teaching English at the school level is to develop interest in English. To develop interest in English. In order to develop interest of the students in the English language, the teacher has to create an error-friendly learning environment in the classroom. The students should be allowed to make mistakes and errors. Then only the students can be motivated to learn the language, and they will be interested in the language. So it is important to develop interest in the language, and in order to develop interest, the teacher should create a mistake-friendly or error-friendly learning environment in the classroom. Thank you very much. Let us finish the topic here. The topic was objectives and scope of teaching English at school level. Thank you.